Hello, and welcome back to Old Charles today. We are diving deep into the world of Australian coinage, focusing on one fascinating piece, the Australia 50-cent coin from 1981. Whether you're a coin collector, a history lover, or just curious about the value of the coins in your pocket, this video will give you everything you need to know. We'll cover the history, the design, the condition, and grading, and most importantly, the value of this iconic coin. To understand the 1981 50-cent coin, we first need to go back to its origins. Australia first introduced the 50-cent denomination in 1966, the year of decimalisation, when the country switched from pounds and shillings to dollars and cents. The very first 50-cent coin was round and made of 80% silver. But because the silver content was worth more than the face value of the coin, it was quickly withdrawn from circulation after just 1 year. That in 1969, the Royal Australian Mint introduced the dodecagonal shape. That's a 12-sided design, which is the style we still see today. This was not only to make the coin distinctive and easier to recognize, but also to avoid confusion with the 20-cent piece, WY 1981. The 50-cent coin was firmly established in Australian currency. The coin from this year was struck in copper nickel, 75% copper and 25% nickel, and weighed 15.55 grams. It is one of the heaviest coins in circulation worldwide. Now here's an interesting fact. 1981 was a special year because, to meet demand, 50-cent coins were not only minted in Canberra at the Royal Australian Mint, but also struck at the Royal Mint in London, and even in Canada at the Royal Canadian Mint. This means there are slight differences in strike and finish between coins depending on where they were minted, which makes them fascinating for collectors. The obverse of the coin, like most Australian coins of the time, features the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. The 1981 version used the Arnold Mackin portrait, which shows the Queen wearing a tiara. The reverse side is equally impressive. It displays the Australian coat of arms, which includes the kangaroo and the emu, two of the nation's most iconic animals, along with a shield that represents the 6 states of Australia. This design has remained a hallmark of the 50-cent coin for decades, making it one of the most recognizable designs in Australian coinage. So, how much is the 1981 50-cent coin worth today in circulated condition? This coin is extremely common and generally worth its face value of 50 cents. Millions were minted, so finding one in your change is not unusual. However, things change when we talk about uncirculated or high-grade examples. If the coin has been carefully preserved and shows no wear, it can fetch between $2 to $5 AUD for proof or mint set versions. Coins specially struck for collectors in 1981. The value can be higher, sometimes around $10 to $20 AUD, depending on condition. Now here's the really exciting part, error coins. Like many coins struck in large quantities, some 1981 50-cent pieces were minted with mistakes. Errors such as off-center strikes, double strikes, die cracks, or wrong planchets can make these coins worth anywhere from $50 to several $100s, depending on rarity and demand. The value of your 1981 50-cent coin depends heavily on its condition. Coin collectors use grading terms to describe this, usually only worth face value. Some details are still sharp, minor wear, worth slightly more than face value. Most details are clear, very light wear, may fetch up to $2 to $3 AUD. No wear, straight from a mint roll or set, can reach $5 or more. Special collector strikes with mirror-like surfaces, worth the most, often $15, $20 AUD, that to maximize value. Collectors recommend storing coins in protective cases to prevent scratches, tarnish, and handling damage. So there you have it. The Australia 50-cent coin from 1981 may not make you rich overnight, but it holds a fascinating story. From its unique shape and design, to being struck at multiple mints worldwide, to its role as a symbol of Australian identity, this coin is more than just 50 cents in your pocket. For most, it will remain a common coin in circulation. But for collectors, especially those who find error coins or pristine uncirculated examples, it can be worth a lot more than its face value. If you have a 1981 50-cent coin, check its condition carefully. You never know. You might be holding on to a hidden gem. We are diving deep into the fascinating world of Australian currency. with a spotlight on the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin. This is more than just a piece of pocket change. It carries with it decades of history, tradition, and stories from the time of decimalisation all the way to Australia's growth as a modern nation. In this video, we'll explore the long history, the design details, the condition and grading system, and finally, the value of this iconic coin. So let's begin our journey. To truly understand the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin, we need to step back in time and look at the bigger picture of Australia's coinage system. Before 1966, Australia used the pounds, shillings, and pence system, inherited from Britain. For example, there were 12 pence in a shilling and 20 shillings in a pound. This system had been in place since colonization in 1788. But by the mid-20th century, the world was moving toward decimalisation, which was simpler and more efficient. In 1966, Australia took the historic leap into decimal currency, introducing the dollar and the cent. This was a massive change. The old pennies, shillings, and florins were replaced with cents and dollars. Among the new coins introduced was the 50-cent piece. The very first 50-cent coin of 1966 was round and made from 80% silver and 20% copper. It was a beautiful coin, heavier than most, and it carried the Arnold Machin portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, while the reverse featured the Australian coat of arms. However, there was a major issue: the rising price of silver. Very quickly, the silver content of a coin became worth more than 50 cents, which meant people started hoarding them for their metal value. Because of this, the round silver 50-cent coin was withdrawn from circulation after only 1 year, making it one of the shortest-lived and most collectible coins in Australian history. In 1969, the 50-cent coin made its return, but with some big changes. To prevent hoarding, the coin was no longer made of silver. Instead, it was struck in copper-nickel, 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it a silvery look but without the precious metal content. It was also given a distinctive dodecagonal shape, meaning 12 sides, making it instantly recognizable by touch and sight. This also ensured it wouldn't be confused with the smaller 20-cent coin, which was round. This 12-sided design is the style still used today. Fast forward to 1981. This was a special year in the history of the Australian 50-cent coin. Demand for coins was higher than usual, and the Royal Australian Mint in Canberra needed extra help to meet production. As a result, 1981 50-cent coins were minted not only in Canberra, but also at the Royal Mint in London, England, and the Royal Canadian Mint in Ottawa, Canada. This makes 1981 one of the rare years in which Australia's circulating currency was produced overseas. The decision to mint overseas wasn't unusual at the time. Other denominations, like the 1 cent and 2 cent coins, had also been produced abroad in certain years. But for the 50-cent coin, 1981 stands out as one of the most memorable. Collectors today can sometimes tell subtle differences between coins minted in Australia, the UK, or Canada, based on the strike quality and finish. Now, it's also important to understand the historical context of 1981 in Australia. This was a time when the country was experiencing economic shifts, with inflation and unemployment being significant issues. The government of Malcolm Fraser was in power, and coins like the 50-cent piece played an everyday role in people's lives, from buying groceries to being used in vending machines and public telephones. Despite being such a common coin, the 1981 issue reflects Australia's broader history. A young nation balancing its ties to the Commonwealth, with a Queen's portrait on the obverse, while also reinforcing its own identity through the reverse design, the Australian coat of arms, with the kangaroo and emu as national symbols. These animals were chosen not just because they are unique to Australia, but also because they famously cannot walk backwards, symbolizing progress and forward movement for the nation. So, when you hold a 1981 Australian 50-cent coin, you're not just holding money. You're holding a piece of a story that began with the move to decimal currency in 1966, the silver shortage, the international cooperation with mints in London and Canada, and Australia's identity as a Commonwealth nation finding its own place in the modern world. When it comes to the 1981 Australian 50-cent coin, or any collectible coin, one of the most important factors that determines its value is condition. The difference between a worn coin you find in pocket change and a pristine, untouched example from a mint set can be huge. Let's go deep into what condition really means for this coin. Collectors and dealers around the world use a grading scale to describe the condition of coins. For Australian coins, the same internationally recognized terms apply. These coins are heavily worn, often with smooth surfaces and missing details. For the 1981 50-cent coin, the coat of arms may appear flat, and the Queen's portrait may have lost most fine lines. These coins usually only hold face value. In this grade, the coin is very worn, but the main designs are still visible. Dates and lettering are readable, though weak. Still worth just 50 cents unless it has an error. Moderate wear is visible. The Queen's portrait shows some details of the crown and face, while the kangaroo and emu on the reverse are distinguishable. Collectors might pay a little above face value for a neat example, light to moderate wear, with most details sharp. You can still see definition in the Queen's hair, and the coat of arms shield retains strong lines. A VF coin may sell for $1 to $2 AUD, just slight wear on the highest points of the design. The surfaces are still bright, and the details are sharp. Coins in EF condition are desirable for entry-level collectors and may fetch $2 to $3 AUD, virtually nowhere, only tiny signs of handling. These coins often come from hoards or rolls saved shortly after minting. An AU example could be worth $3 to $4 AUD. These coins show no trace of wear at all. They may have bag marks, small nicks from being stored in bulk, but the design is as fresh as the day it was struck. Uncirculated 1981 50-cent coins often sell for $4 to $6 AUD, sometimes more if from a roll, at a higher level of uncirculated, with luster surfaces and almost no marks. A strong BU coin can appeal to advanced collectors. These are specially made collector coins, struck using polished dies and blank planchets, giving them mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs. Proof coins from 1981 were not released for circulation, but came in special sets. They are worth significantly more, often $15 to $20 AUD, depending on demand. The reason condition matters so much is because of supply and demand. Millions of 1981 50-cent coins were minted, but most entered circulation and picked up scratches, wear, and damage. High-grade coins are scarcer because they had to survive decades without being used or mishandled. That scarcity increases their collector value. Serious collectors take steps to protect coins and maintain their grade. Coins should always be handled by the edges, never the face, to avoid fingerprints and oils from the skin. Coins are stored in 2x2 cardboard holders, plastic flips, or coin albums. For higher grade coins, capsules are recommended. Avoid humidity, heat, and direct sunlight, which can cause toning or tarnish. Never clean a coin, as this damages the surface and drastically lowers its value. Collectors prefer natural toning over polished surfaces. Let's compare a well-worn circulated coin is only worth its face value of 50 cents. An extremely fine coin may sell for a few dollars. An uncirculated example can be worth several times face value. A proof strike can be worth up to 40 times face value. An error coin in top condition could even be worth hundreds, depending on rarity. This is why collectors pay close attention to grading. Even two coins from the same year and mint can have vastly different values depending on their condition. So, when you look at your 1981 Australian 50-cent coin, take a close look at the Queen's crown, the kangaroo and emu, and the shield on the reverse. The sharp